As a 16-year-old high school student, I have seen far too many reposts every day on my Instagram feed about the latest act of gun violence. When I see reports about the latest school shooting, I get left feeling scared, confused, and angry. I see yet another group of innocent people just trying to enjoy their day and be shot. Dadeville, Alabama, Allen, Texas, Monterey Park, California. I see my peers reposting and protesting all these mass shootings. Me and the people around me are so aware of what is going on, but yet we are so unaware of how it can happen to us. Gun violence is a problem that has only increased over the years, and it affects everything and everyone. It is heavily fixed in our political debates in society, and is something that we can just not stay away from. Each and every year, lives are being taken from gun violence. We can't fully take guns away from people, but we can do something about the people who are doing it. I want to address the senseless acts of people who participate in gun violence and how is it affecting America and how we can change the hold it has on the lives of our own people, mental health, and the U.S. economy. Every day, Americans are victims. It is everyone, not one specific group. I would first like to get into the statistics of what is happening on a daily and weekly basis with gun violence. According to Team Enough, every day an average of 316 Americans are shot in all acts of gun violence like assaults, murders, unintentional shootings, and suicide or suicide attempts. So on average, that is 106 people who are shot and then die, and 210 people who are shot but then survive. Secondly, we have had 200 mass shootings in the U.S. so far as of May. According to Everytown Research, hate motivated many of the deadliest mass shootings. The people who are doing these shootings haven't thought about what and why are they doing it. They just have a senseless and hate-driven mindset that ends up killing hundreds of civilians every day. In each of the last 3 years, according to BBC, there has been 600 mass shootings. Right now, like I said before, we are already at 200 as of May, and that is almost halfway to 600. And like I said, it's only May. Thirdly, I would like to talk about children because they are a big part of how gun violence is affecting us. According to CNN, firearms are the leading cause of death for children as of 2020. This passed the previous leading cause of death, which was traffic accidents or car accidents. So children are more likely to die from a gun than a car accident. Children are in cars every single day, and a gun isn't something they shouldn't have to worry about because there isn't a seatbelt for gun violence. Some people may argue our Second Amendment and how they have the right to bear arms. They say that Americans don't want restrictions from their guns, or restrictions from the government. But according to AP News, 71% of Americans actually say that there should be stricter gun laws. Death isn't the only thing that can take life of people who witness guns. PTSD and anxiety are also really big factors that take place when you witness a shooting. These illnesses can mentally take the life and happiness from people, and it can literally take the life of people. I'm sure you have all learned in your history class about how war veterans experience mental health disorders or PTSD. I do understand that being in war and witnessing a shooting are two completely different things, but all it takes is seeing someone you walk past on the street, go to work with, or personally know be shot, then you have an increased likelihood of developing a mental health disorder. Gun violence just doesn't affect those who witness it firsthand. It can also affect a community, state, or even nation. This is a ripple effect. The hurt and disbelief after a shooting is felt everywhere, and it affects everything. According to New York Times, even those who don't frequently experience gun violence or have never witnessed it still have feelings of isolation, hurt, anger, and helplessness. Lastly, I would like to talk about the PTSD effect. If you don't already know, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. and it can give people feelings of guilt, isolation. It can give people flashbacks and random nightmares. According to New York Times, for some people, the stress can decrease over time, but for some people, it can have longer lasting effects. PTSD is very wearying for anyone to live with. There's a lack of sleep, you're always worried, you stop doing things that may remind you of your trauma, and some people may even do some things that may harm them. And now I would like to talk about the story of Heather Martin. Heather Martin was a high school student in 1999 when two gunmen came into her school and killed 13 people and wounded 21. The gunmen ended up killing themselves after the shooting. After the shooting, Heather just thought she'd be able to get over it. She thought she was fine. She wasn't fine though. A few years later, she dropped out of college and she developed an eating disorder and she started taking recreational drugs. 10 years after the shooting, she finally got the help she needed. Heather didn't even first-handedly witness the shooting. She was just around it, and she dealt with it for over 10 years. Mental health is a very important factor when it comes to gun violence, and it cannot be ignored. Not only is there a toll on the amount of deaths and mental health disorders people are getting, but believe it or not, there's also an economic toll on businesses, schools, and the society. Firstly, the society. According to Jack.Senate, $1 billion generate each year in healthcare costs for victims and their families. And according to an article by The Skimm, communities that have experienced gun violence heavily have decreased economic growth, which then leads to less business startups and then fewer jobs for people in a community. Secondly, schools. After a school shooting, schools that are personally affected or even schools that are surrounded most likely have to pay for damages done, like healthcare costs for students that are victims, or they'll pay loads of money for higher amounts of security and enforcements. Lastly is businesses. In cities and neighborhoods where gun violence surges take place, there is reduced growth of new retail and service businesses, which leads to, again, fewer jobs for people. Some people may argue that guns and economics are not connected at all, and gun control should not be affecting the economy. But with all this evidence, economics are a major part of our everyday lives, and it affects the way we live. This problem can get better. No, it will not eliminate gun violence all in all, but there is something that we can do to make it better. My solution to this problem is number one, enforce more red flag laws. This means that a court can temporarily take away a gun from a person who may present danger to themselves or someone else. This leads into my second point, which is stricter background checks. If a person is going to purchase a gun and they take this stricter background check, and it again says that they may present danger to themselves or someone else, they're not allowed to purchase the gun. Next is age. I would like to higher the age to 21 to purchase any type of gun. This eliminates teens and younger age people from getting access to these guns. As a country, we need to do something about gun violence. The number of senseless acts that take away so many people's lives every day cannot keep going up. The number of people with mental health disorders cannot keep going up, and the U.S. economy cannot keep going down. We need to wake up and realize it is our own people's lives that we are losing. How many more lives is it going to take before you start taking action?